the McDonald's Juicy Scoop.
Hello and welcome to Juicy Scoop. I'm very, very excited to talk to Sarah Turney from the podcast Voices for Justice. Sarah, you have really kind of burst into this world of true crime, podcasting, TikTok. I'll just get to my listeners how I discovered you, because they probably by now they might have heard about you, but if they haven't, I want them to definitely know your story. I recently got into TikTok, and I was talking about how great TikTok is, and don't mean to brag, I did one video with my son in all of my career that went to 6,000,005 views just because it was cute. But anyway, and in the For You page, I started to see your videos about your sister who went missing in 2001 and the creepy home videos that you were sharing with TikTok of your dad who would constantly film her, which appears to be without her knowledge that she was being filmed, sometimes with her knowledge, sometimes without. And so I just want you to just say, I've listened to the first episode of yours. I've also heard you go on other interviews. So I have lots of questions for you. And you're trying to get justice. You believe your dad is the person who killed your sister in 2001. So with that being said, why don't you just give a little summary of it? And then I have lots of questions for you.
Of course, yeah. And first I want to say I saw your TikTok video and thought it was the cutest thing ever. And it was before you contacted me. I thought the challenge of going up to your mom was just the cutest thing. So I love that.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a long, crazy journey, of course. So I'll give you the high-level overview. It's just, Alissa went missing in 2001. She was 17. I was 12. I didn't really think much of it at the time. I really thought that she was just a runaway. But of course, the police start investigating around 2006. And by 2008, they are, sitting me down and telling me that my father is this man I had no idea he was, that he was, abusing Alissa, that I had a sister I didn't know about, that he was, hiding us from family, just really shattered my world because he was my only parent. And, at the end of that conversation, they say, and we're raiding your home. And in the home, they find all these home videos of Alissa, and they find 26 pipe bombs and 19 high caliber assault rifles, the biggest bomb bust in Phoenix history. He goes to prison for 10 years. During this time, I come around and start to believe that he really did this to my sister. And the police say, what we're going to do is when he is released from prison, we're going to arrest him. That way he can't combine sentences. But come 2017, when he's released, that doesn't happen. And they tell me, sorry, we can't do it anymore. Your best chance is to get media exposure. And I do. I also, sit down with my father and he tells me, come to the deathbed and I'll give you all the honest answers you want to hear. And he also says, I will confess to everything about Alissa if the state agrees to give me lethal injection within 10 days. So yeah, it's been this crazy sordid journey. And, the police have submitted the case for prosecution, but it's been 18 months and it's a huge reason why I started my podcast. I feel like it's this last leg of a marathon where I really have to push. And, thank goodness TikTok has also escalated. I had no idea that doing these silly videos, at first would turn into this. And yeah, I mean, people are captivated by that home video.
And it's also so shocking because as someone new to TikTok, and I've told my listeners, hey, TikTok's not just a bunch of 13-year-old girls dancing, because we saw a lot of that a couple months ago. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't want to learn a TikTok dance. Why is everyone doing this? And now, and I'll be watching things that appeal to me, cute baby dog things, soldiers coming home, women sneaking up on their husbands being cute dads. And then all of a sudden your video pops up and you're just whoa, what is this? And it does feel like we're all stepping into a little mystery because you get this little snippet of your story of you telling the world, I believe my dad is responsible for my sister's death. Here's a little weird moment from the past. So first I want to just begin. So your childhood, I know that, so your mom had your sister Alissa. Was she the only child she had when she married your dad?
No, so I also have a brother named John that my mother had before she met my father.
So the two of them meet. Did he bring any kids into the marriage?
He did. He brought 3 sons, so it was pretty much the Brady Bunch.
And did he, the mother of those sons, was she involved in her son's life, or did he have custody?
He had full custody, but she was a great mother and was involved.
Okay, so you're all living in the house together, and then your parents have you together, or no?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
So your dad met Alissa, became her stepfather when she was like 3 or 4, right?
Yeah, 2.5.
Oh,
so
two
the
and a
only
half.
father she ever knew, yeah.
Okay. And so growing up, I was listening to the first episode of your podcast where you call your dad, and he knows the conversation's being taped, and you're interviewing him, and I get the sense that you're looking back at your childhood, and you realize that, first of all, I mean, it's obvious that you are probably gifted, gifted as far as intellectually. But with that, you really had like no discipline growing up. You got to smoke pot. You dropped out of school and no one seemed to care, even though you were really smart. He gave you drugs to experiment with. You had McDonald's every night, candy at midnight. And he obviously really favored you. And at that time as a child, you saw him as a good dad. Is that correct?
Absolutely. He was basically my best friend and my hero.
And so your sister is how many years older than you?
Alyssa's 4 years older than me.
Okay, so that's pretty close actually in age. So there's so many things here. Okay, so as you know, right?
Yes.
So you're growing up. She's now 17. So then you're I'm so dumb. Like I've gotten dumber during the quarantine. So now you're 13. And she's got a little job at a local fast food place, and we see that video. So while she's working at this fast food place, your dad would go during her shift and film her with a video camera from the car. Now, what has he ever said why he did that? It sounded like from the interview you did with him, it sounded like he thought that she was so mentally challenged that he felt the need to have to film her from the parking lot to make sure that she was getting the orders right inside at the fast food restaurant. But to any other normal person, it looks like complete stalking obsession and some type of weird shit's going on.
Absolutely. I mean, he told me that he thought that she could be leaving early, lying to him and saying that she had to work late and then leaving with a boy. But yeah, he even went as far as to, this is what he tells me anyway, to speak to a police officer that apparently was in that parking lot all the time, making sure things were safe. And he said that he shared this story with the police officer and the police officer was on his side. It's just a really crazy story. I mean, he just watched her nonstop. And I think that was because he was afraid that she was going to go off with other men.
And in your opinion, you think he was sexually abusing her, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, Alissa told many people.
And when do you believe it began in her life? What age?
I believe it began very young. Our mother took Alissa to the doctor to check for scarring when she was about 3, and the doctor did confirm that there was scarring.
Like vaginal scarring?
Exactly.
Oh my God. Mm-hmm.
And she told a teacher when she was 9 years old. This teacher was also dating our father, and she went up to, Alissa went up to this teacher/girlfriend and said, "I'm having sex with my dad." So I think it started very, very young.
And okay, so wait, were your parents split up? At what age did they split up then?
So our mother passed away in 1993 when I was about 4 and Alissa was about 8. So that would have been right after our mother
What
passed.
did she pass away from?
So cancer, but there's, a lot of rumors behind that too, because she happened to die. We know she had cancer. This is not debatable, but she died very soon before her life insurance policy was due to lapse.
Where did she die? At the home or in a hospital?
At the home, in which our father gave her last dose of morphine, and she begged them to call 911, and it was apparently a very scary scene. And her mom at that point was laying on the floor next to her hospital bed, just in case our father came to her, so she could wake up and monitor everything our father was doing, because she was afraid of just
your
that.
mom's mom, your grandma?
Correct.
Was suspicious.
Yes, that and her sister. They were both there at the house monitoring her and helping with the family.
Oh, God. Okay, so your mom passes, your dad gets this girlfriend who's the fourth grade teacher of your sister. How did she react when your sister told her that she was at 9 having sex with her father?
Yeah, I mean, from the police report, she says that she went to our father and he kind of laughed it off and she just assumed that it was false.
And how long did this woman continue to date your dad after hearing such a story?
Not very long after that, and he never dated again.
Oh my God. Okay, so now growing up, she's the big sister. How would she warn you? We see some of the video where she would warn you, but was there anything else like that wasn't filmed just between the two of you? Because that is a very common thing with children of abuse. Once their younger sibling seems to get to an age that might be desirable to the predator/dad, they, become very protective and almost want to take the brunt of the abuse. They're scared to leave. They're scared to maybe go and graduate and leave the home because they know they're literally leaving like a sitting duck there. Did you have what was your opinion of that?
Yeah, I mean, Alissa never shared the abuse with me. I had no idea it was happening. I saw them fight all the time, but I didn't know it went that far. But Alissa did tell friends that she was saving her money so that when she turned 18, she could leave the home and take me with her because she never wanted to leave me alone in that environment. And she was terrified to tell Child Protective Services because our father always told us that Child Protective Services would split us up and we would never see each other again.
Oh my God. Okay, so she's 17 and she's a senior in high school when she went missing?
Junior. It was the last day of her junior year.
And you come home and let's just talk about that day.
Yeah. I mean, so from my point of view, my father picks me up late. He's not there to pick me up at school. And I walk to a friend's house and I'm 12. So I go and smoke some cigarettes or whatever. And, that's all I can think about, which is why it's relevant to the story. And I get in his truck and he says, your sister's not answering her phone. Can you give her a call? At this point, just Alissa and my father have cell phones. So he hands me her cell phone, or I'm sorry, he hands me his cell phone and I call her and there's no answer. We get to the home, and mind you, my father is ex-law enforcement, and he's already concerned that something's going on, and he sends me into her bedroom first. I go in there first to see everything. The backpack is, dumped all over the ground. There's papers and stuff everywhere, which is odd because Alissa was very, very neat. And to the left is her dresser, and I find her cell phone and, this runaway note that was confirmed. It was written by her, but, the analyst believes it was written at 2 different times. And this note says, Dad and Sarah, when you dropped me off at school today, I decided I really am going to California. Sarah, you wanted me gone. Now you have it. Dad, that's why I saved my money. I took $300 from you, Alissa.
So when do you think that was written? Like they think it was written before, or do you think it was written under distress? Like he made her write it?
It's hard to say. The police have told me outright that they think that my father made her write that note. But they are referring to a conversation that happened about a week before Alissa went missing, in which our aunt offered to take Alissa in, but this aunt was estranged. We never knew her. Our father, kept us away from her. So I know Alissa did not want to go with this aunt. And one of my brothers can confirm, about the $300. So, it says, I took $300 from you. And that happened before Alissa went missing, and she had already returned the money to our father.
Oh.
Yeah, and that $1,800 that she says that she saved, she never touched. The bank was, a quarter mile from our house, and if she ran away, she didn't take her money
she would
with
need
her.
her $1,800. I think that I think your dad saved the letter and planned it out, and I think he knew that she was gonna start to tell, especially if she got away.
Oh, absolutely.
And so for a while, you guys just assume, you're only 12, that she really did just run away and you're not hearing from her. So when from the day that she runs away to the day that they start to investigate your dad and find all these weapons and pipe bombs in your house?
Yeah, I mean, it was it was a really long time, and I really didn't believe that anything bad could have happened to Alissa. I really thought that she ran away, and that next school year starts, and I think I realized that it's more serious, right? But I'm still really young, and I kind of bury those emotions in being a teenager and experimenting with drugs and alcohol and hanging out with guys and all those things you do as a teenager. I really threw myself into that, but at the same time, I was like missing school and going back for academic decathlon. Like I feel like I was trying to fill that gap everywhere I could, which really made me not think about it. I'm not going to lie. I tried everything I could to not think about Alissa when I was a teenager because it hurt so much and I didn't want to come to terms with what happened. But essentially, the police didn't do anything. I wasn't interviewed until 7 years later. What happened was there was a gentleman named Thomas Heimer, and this guy killed someone. He was in prison for murder. We know that that's a real murder that happened. He was pretty much caught red-handed. But one day he writes a letter to a detective and says, "I'm going to make you famous. I'm a serial killer." And he admits to killing 22 people, including J.C. Lee Dugard, who was found alive and well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and also Alissa. But what this does is spark the first investigation into Alissa's case, and they quickly rule out that this guy had anything to do with it. He even admits it. I've talked to this guy, and he says he didn't do it. So that was eliminated super quick. But this is when they narrow the focus on our father. Of course, there's other persons of interest that they ruled out: the boyfriend, a guy that was working at the school, a guy that was at her job, all those normal suspects, if you will. But yeah, like I said, they focus on our father, and pretty soon he doesn't cooperate. He won't sit down for an interview with them. He still has, never to this day. And
this is seven, just to confirm, this is 7 years after she went missing.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So this is
So
2008.
now are you out of the house now, living your life? Because now you'd be over 18, right?
So I was still in college. So I was 19
Okay.
And in college. So I was still living with him.
So you're living at the house, going to college. Okay, continue.
Yeah. So my father wasn't being cooperative in any way, essentially. We had a hidden camera inside of our living room vent, and we had exterior cameras. We had a recording system on our phone that recorded every single phone call coming in and going out on the landline.
Now, wait,
And
how much were you aware of the amount of recording that was happening within your home at this time, before the detective started to ask about your dad and Alissa?
So I knew about the external cameras, of course. I knew about the recording system on the phone because that had been there since before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
It was really obvious. We knew exactly what it was and all that. And eventually I did learn about the camera in the vent before Alissa went missing. My father came to me and showed me some footage of her making out with a guy on the couch and her having a fight with her boyfriend. Yeah, so I mean, I was aware of it, and I later found out that Alissa also knew about the camera in the living room vent. But there are, her friends have come forward and said, I'm pretty sure there was cameras in her bedroom. There was a neighbor that said she was pretty sure she saw a camera in our bathroom at one point. Just some really scary things.
When your dad showed you the vent camera, and he showed it to you while she was still alive.
Correct.
Was that then after she went missing and you were kind of this little bit of a, you self-admitted wild teen, did you know not to make out with guys on that couch or do something you didn't want your dad to be aware of? Like, did you feel he showed it to you like, hey, just so you know, when I'm not around, there's eyes everywhere? Or how was it presented?
No, I mean, it was specifically for Alissa. I was pretty much the golden child, despite me literally being worse in terms of behavior than Alissa. I was the golden child. And after Alissa was gone, he immediately moved me to the master bedroom where all the camera monitors were housed, essentially. And he took down that camera in the vent. I asked him to. I said, Alyssa's gone. You don't need that camera anymore, right? And he said, yeah, and he took it down. So it was just for Alissa.
Wow. Okay, so the detective starts to come around, ask about your dad, and he won't cooperate. And so when do they get a search warrant to find all this, pipe bombs and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, it's after he won't hand over any footage from the day Alissa left. He won't hand over any audio recording from the day that he says Alissa called. Just totally uncooperative, right? And the thing is, like, he also did some weird things. Like, he sent the police camera footage from that vent, of the same one he showed me, of her making out with her boyfriend and getting in a fight with her boyfriend. He also sent the police over fax a contract he made Alissa sign stating that she had never been sexually abused or physically abused by our father. So there's this weird element of he's kind of cooperating but not cooperating, and they want more information. So this is when they go in and they get the search warrant. And they get me out of the house, thank goodness. They basically call me because I am the family contact at this point. My father couldn't handle it anymore. So I'm the person the police communicate with, and they say, come down to the station, we have some news about your sister. And then, that's when they sit me down and kind of shatter my whole world, and tell me that they're raiding the house, and that's when they find everything.
And that's when you're 19.
Correct.
So they find everything, and because of that, was there a trial where your dad got sentenced 10 years? Was it a plea deal? Like, how quickly between the raid and him going away for 10 years, how much time passed then?
It took years, and I was essentially acting as his legal secretary. I still believed he was innocent, so I filed dozens and dozens of motions for him, and he ended up firing his public defender and representing himself. So it took even longer. It was like 2 years, if I remember correctly.
But what was his excuse for having pipe bombs in the house?
Oh, he says the Phoenix police planted them in the house, and they weren't his at all. Eventually he does plead guilty, but that's a story he still tells.
And the police believe that he had those pipe bombs for what purpose?
So along with these pipe bombs, they find a 97-page manifesto outlining exactly what he wants to do with these pipe bombs, and also what he believes happened to Alissa. So in this document, he says that 2 men from an electrical union that he used to be a part of killed Alissa, and in turn, he had to go kill those 2 men. And I know it's insane. And as a part of this plan, he was going to use all these pipe bombs, shoot anyone that was moving at this union hall, this union building. Again, this local union that he was a part of. So he was planning on using the bombs to, cause damage to the building, as well as he had a van that was rigged with propane tanks and like chlorine sticks in the wheel wells and stuff.
Where was the van? Did the van exist, or he just wrote about the van?
It existed. It was in our backyard. But I saw it, and it was like filled with newspaper, like being like 1,000%
like a hoarding van kind of thing, or no?
Yeah, and me and my friends would go smoke in there. So I had no idea it was like rigged to explode or whatever. God. Yeah, we would go smoke in there. Not to get, any more detailed than that.
Right.
But that was his plan.
So when they found the manifesto, did he say, I really wrote this because I really do think these people took your sister? Or was it I was having a psychotic episode and I wrote a manifesto?
He's told both stories. He said that it's real, and he said that it's all fiction.
Wow. Okay, so is there a trial before he's sentenced, or does he do a plea deal?
No, there's a full trial, and he gets the maximum of 10 years.
And are you going to the trial every day?
I went to every single hearing of his bomb trial.
And at that time, you were hoping he'd get off?
Yeah, I was trying to help him. I believed him. I didn't think that any of this could have really happened. I think I was a little more open to the idea that maybe he had these bombs, but I never thought in a million years he would have used them. Of course, all of that's changed now because I've learned so much about him and the history of all of this. But I thought he was innocent. So
he goes off to prison. And are you devastated that he's gone off to prison?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I'd never spent that much time without my father in my life ever. I was 1,000% a daddy's girl.
So how old are you when he goes off to prison, and what year is it when he goes off to prison?
Yeah, so this would have been, I think, 2010 he was sentenced. So I think I was just turning 21.
Okay, so then what does the rest of the next few years of your life look like as a 21-year-old whose sister is still missing, presumed dead at this point, and your dad is doing 10 years for pipe bombs? What is Sarah's life like?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on my own. I got legal power of attorney over all of his assets. Again, I'm the youngest of 6 kids, and I get everything. I get all the dogs, I get all the house debt, I get everything. So yeah, I'm trying to sort out his affairs. I'm trying to, get this house gone, and I'm still in college at this point. I, end up, thank goodness, graduating near the top of my class. I end up buying my own house and starting my own life. I
And this
realized,
is all in Arizona?
correct.
So what school did you graduate from?
Arizona State.
Oh, awesome. So you finish all that, and then did you sell the house?
So I just let the house go. I eventually tell him, I'm like, listen, like the mortgage is really inflated. I'm going to find my own place. And he says, let it go, Sarah. This house isn't going to do anything for you. It's just a burden. Just let the bank take it back.
Okay. So you're talking to him how often during his 10-year prison sentence?
I mean, in the beginning, goodness, I would think a few times a week, and I would send him just insane amounts of money so that he could have every luxury in prison. He had TVs and all the food he could ever want, and just every luxury I could afford for him in prison. But yeah, we were talking all the time, and I visited him as much as I could before he ended up moving to a few different prisons. But while he was here, I was out there trying to visit him as much as possible.
And so when is the day that you went from, being his supporter to being, suspicious of him?
Yeah, it's odd, right? Because it's not like a switch just flipped. It was kind of this slow build of me realizing that he's just not a good person. And I always point to, when he called and I was really excited to tell him that I was graduating at the top of my class, right? Because this is huge for me. Like, no one in my mother's side of the family had ever graduated from college. So I was super excited. And I'm like, Dad, guess what? I did it. I'm graduating from college at the top of my class. I just bought this house. I'm just so proud. I'm doing well in my job. And he says, your mom, I'm seeing visions of your dead mother, and she's just really disappointed that you, dropped out of high school. And it's not related to Alyssa's case, right? But it made me go, maybe this guy isn't the guy I thought he was. To say such a horrendous thing to your daughter, after all the circumstances, right? But that wasn't it alone. That just kind of opened my mind to like, maybe he's not this great of guy as I thought. And I started having conversations, with my boyfriend at the time and some of my family members. And essentially I was like, do you think Dad could do this? And everyone was like, Sarah, everyone thinks Dad did this. Everyone thinks Dad killed Alissa. You're the only one that doesn't think this. And yeah, I pretty much just came around from there. And that's when I reached right out to detectives and said, hey, I doubt this. How can I help you get information to explore this?
And when you reached out to the detective, he was still in custody. He was still in prison, right?
Correct.
And how much time did he have left when you reached out to the detective?
I believe it was about 5 years left.
And then at that time, they did investigate, or they said, we'll get on this once he gets out?
So at this point, the investigation was still ongoing, but they had done the majority of the work beforehand. I mean, they did a very good, thorough investigation. There were 2 detectives on the case for like 10 years who cared very, very much. At this point, when I start, coming around and wanting to help, they do ask me to reach out and, ask certain questions. They begin asking me about A, B, and C with my brothers, just things like that. But like I said, the majority in the investigation was already done. So at this point, they kept telling me about how they planned to arrest him and how that was the plan going forward. So I was kind of like, all right, well, you guys are the experts. Like, it sounds legit to me. I'm not a police officer. I'll just wait for him to get arrested then.
So he gets out, and does he think at this time that things are still good with you guys? Is he expecting you to be there when he walks out of the prison? Like, what's that like?
No. So when he was in prison, when he called, I told him, I said, things aren't adding up. Like, I don't know what to believe. Things look really, really bad on your end. And he never said, like, how could you think that? Of course not. Do you know how much I miss Alissa? He just, changed the subject and didn't care to talk about it or address anything. So yeah, by the time he got out, he knew exactly how I felt about him.
And so okay, so you let that house go, but before you let that house go, you found what? A bunch of VHS tapes from, video cameras, and you saved them? Did you go through them at the time, or did you just put them in a box? Like, how did that come about in the discovery of all of this?
Sure. I mean, so my father recorded everything. So I knew that we had tons and tons and tons of home videos. They've just always been around. I watched ones of my mother, things like that. But the police took all of those when they raided the home. They took every single, like CD, DVD, VHS tape. And the home videos were basically the first thing I asked back. After my father was sentenced, I said, can I have those home videos back? It's all I have left of my mom and sister. So yeah, the police released them to me. I can't guarantee I have every single one just because there were so many. And when they raid your house, the detailed list of what they take is not very detailed or great. So I have no idea if I have them all, but yeah, I mean, I had these in my possession pretty shortly after my father went to prison because I asked for them back. But how I found these tapes was I was just converting them from VHS to DVD in order to preserve them before these VHS tapes turned to dust or whatever. And I started finding these things, and
Now,
it was
what
really
what
shocking.
year did you start to find these ones, like the ones that you've shared on TikTok, the really creepy ones where she's in the pool and it looks like is she doing sign language or something? Someone said like when she's in the pool and he's filming her, what is she doing there?
Yeah. So I found these in, I want to say 2018, 2019, I started converting them.
Oh, just recently.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
pretty recently because they'd just been sitting there and, I figured let's get it done, like I said, before they turned to dust. But yeah, I find this video of Alissa in a pool and I post it because she's like, stop filming me, get away from me or whatever. And people started telling me, I think she's doing sign language. So I posted that video on YouTube, I think over a year ago. And, I put it back out there on TikTok and it went insane. And what I was hoping for was that some type of expert would say, she's definitely saying this. And I could take it to the police because that would be an actual statement from Alissa. So that's why I posted it. And a lot of people do say that she is using American Sign Language. But I'm still looking for that expert that I can present to police with what she might be saying.
Okay. And so once you start seeing that, you're already suspicious of your dad, and then you see these videos. And then that's kind of when you start this mission, was you said 2018, of is that the first time you posted a YouTube video of I'm telling the world I think my dad killed my sister?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when the police told me we're not going to prosecute, they said your best chance is to get media exposure. And that was in 2017. So I took that really seriously. But yeah, I'd have to look back, but I believe that they were the first videos I've ever posted to YouTube. On my YouTube, you don't find me on there telling stories or whatever, which hopefully coming soon. But yeah, it's mostly just home videos on there and a way to share these videos that wouldn't fit on an Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. I just used YouTube as a method to share the videos.
And where is your dad right now?
Yeah, as far as I know, last I heard, he's about 10 minutes from my house, still in Phoenix, Arizona.
And the call that we hear on the first episode of your podcast, Voices for Justice, when was that recorded, that conversation?
That was June of 2019, after ABC 2020 asked if we'd come back on. So I called and asked him.
Let's hear about the 2020. When was the first 2020 interview you guys did?
So that was in 2009.
And how did that come about in 2009?
Yeah, they contacted me and said, we want to tell the story of your missing sister and raise awareness. And again, I'm still on my dad's side. So they presented, in a very, we're going to raise awareness. Hopefully you can get new tips for your sister's case. And, I go to my dad and he's all about it. He says he will absolutely interview for ABC 2020. They go to his prison and interview him there. There's a 69-page transcript with the most insane things that he says. But yeah, when it came out, I was shocked, and and I'm still so young at this point. I think I'm 20
when
maybe.
When you see the episode, you're shocked.
Yeah, and because it's all about my father.
And what's the gist of the? So you think the 2020 people originally suspected him as well, and that's why they were pursuing you, and this story because they knew there was something deeper here that you were not aware of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they interview police, and police say that same thing as well. The police, release, I think it's like 3 interviews of people saying that Alissa was accusing him of sexual abuse. So yeah, I was very shocked.
So you sit down on a Friday night to watch the episode of 2020. And is that the first time you're just blown away?
Yeah, because I honestly, I blocked out what the police told me when they sat me down for the raid. I could have, if you would have asked me a year ago before I heard the actual recording, I would have told you that conversation was 5 minutes long. So I didn't retain anything. So when I'm hearing that he picked her up out of school early that day and that people are saying that he sexually abused her, in my mind, I feel like I'm hearing it for the first time. And I start crying and I start, just falling apart. Honestly, I didn't expect that to be the episode, but I get it. I understand. There's really not another way to tell this story, unfortunately.
So where are we now? So how many episodes of your own podcast have you done?
So I just finished the timeline of Alissa's podcast, Voices for Justice. That was 24 episodes. Today, I just released my 25th episode, which is I bring in a retired detective, a detective 19 years, and get his opinion. So I've moved away from the timeline, and I've started, getting interviews with experts to kind of weigh in on the case, because I don't feel comfortable putting my opinion into that podcast. It's very much case record, real audio from meetings, and just very, very factual. So yeah, it's still going.
And so when in the phone conversation you have with your dad back in June of 2019, you say 2020 had come around again. So 10 years later, they contact you and they want to re-interview you because they still believe he's the one, or how did that come about?
Yeah, so they still believe that he's the one. The narrative really hasn't changed. What changed is my opinion, because when I'm on that 2020 in 2009, I defend my father. I'm like, he was a good dad. I don't think he could ever do this, because I honestly felt that way. And they saw me at CrimeCon basically fighting for my father's prosecution, and they were like, hey, you changed your mind. Why don't you come back on and talk to us? And I was all about it, obviously, yeah.
So have you done that? Have you filmed that for 2020? Did that happen yet?
It has not happened yet, but I hope that it will happen soon.
Okay, cool. And so your life has gotten really crazy, in probably the last few months?
Absolutely. Yeah. Really since TikTok. That's really what it was, and I never expected it. But yeah, I mean, I have almost 1 million followers on TikTok, and it has led to so many opportunities, including this one with you. My goodness, This is huge. But yeah, I couldn't be more blessed. I mean, Elle came out with an article, Daily Mail, Barstool Sports just featured her.
Saw that.
Yeah, it's getting crazy. I'm getting offers for documentaries multiple times a day right now. So yeah, I mean, the case is bigger than ever.
Do you have some people guiding you on, which documentary to go with, or what, these opportunities present themselves?
Yeah, I do have people that I can consult with. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that just lies on me and kind of doing what I think is best for her case. There's such important decisions that I don't think I could just pass it off to someone else and say, okay, you just pick the best one or whatever. I'm always involved. Like, my podcast is done independently. I do absolutely everything by myself because I guess I'm really protective over Alissa's story in that way, and especially what I put out and what I'm involved in. But yeah, I have some people I can consult with to make sure I'm not being completely screwed over or whatever.
And do you still have a regular occupation, like a regular job?
So I was laid off twice because of COVID.
Oh, okay.
So right now the podcast is my only job.
What were you doing prior to COVID?
Yeah, I was in events and marketing.
Oh, okay. Well, gosh, I mean, this is one good thing that's come out of COVID, right?
Yeah, I would have never expected it.
That you would have had the time, and people also have the time. And, I just recently said, I love that podcasting and YouTube and all this stuff that there is such a fascination with true crime, because there have been numerous cases that have kind of been cracked open because of people's interest, whether it's an actual victim sister like you or just a curious person who kind of pursues some case they always wondered about. And it's and then of course, how people help. So I love that your shirt says trained detective that you're wearing right now.
So this is actually like it's kind of like a slight at the Phoenix Police Department. I made this merch trained detective because one of the times I called to complain, they were giving case information to basically a stranger. And so I called and I was like, hey, like, what's your regulation for like giving people information about this case? Because it worries me. And they just kept asking me repeatedly if I was a trained detective. Are you a trained detective? Ma'am, are you a trained detective? I went and made merch about it because I'm, I guess, sassy like that.
Well, I think the whole thing's fascinating. Everybody needs to listen to your podcast, follow you, tell them all the info.
Yeah, you can follow my social media accounts at Sarah E. Turney or Voices for Justice. And of course, you can listen to the podcast, Voices for Justice, anywhere you find podcasts. It's absolutely everywhere.
Oh, wait, I have a couple more questions I just thought of. How old were you again when your mom passed? 5?
4.
4, and your sister was only 8.
Yeah.
So after, right in the beginning when you said your mom did take her to the doctor because she was, letting your mom know that it hurt down there? Or, like, do you think your mom just believed it was what do you think about that? Like, what do you think your mom was thinking?
Yeah, I think that she had her suspicions. And, I know about this doctor's visit because she shared it with her sisters who later shared it with me. So, yeah, I think that she was just concerned.
And then but what did she do after that visit? Did she try to be around more, or what was her plan with that?
So she was actually planning on leaving our father. She was babysitting a ton. There's 6 kids in the house, so she didn't work. She only babysat. But
Babysat other people's kids, you mean?
Correct.
To make money.
So
Okay.
Yeah, so there was always like 12 kids in our house or whatever. It was absolute chaos. But she was saving all of her money to leave our father, according to her sisters. And she wanted to divorce him. And then she got diagnosed with cancer. And then she was hoping she would beat it and that she would be able to divorce him after.
Ugh. Wow. And now are you in touch with those aunts, her sisters?
Yeah, one has since passed, unfortunately, but the other I do stay in contact with.
And you had mentioned in the first episode of your podcast when we have the conversation with your dad that you were not close to your brothers or that you weren't invited to their child's birthday. Where do you stand with the brothers, and why was there a rift in your relationship?
Yeah, I mean, all of my brothers believe what I do. They believed it before I believed it, but they don't necessarily enjoy that our family name is out there and that all of our dirty laundry is out there. And I respect it. And I get it. But yeah, I anticipate spending another holiday with a podcast friend as opposed to family.
Oh, and does your brother still live in Arizona or nearby?
Some of them do, and the others are kind of scattered across the country.
And so right now there isn't communication with any of the siblings?
We do. We communicate about case information and things like that, but it's pretty limited. They have a better relationship with each other than I do with any of them, unfortunately.
And because they are essentially when one brother was your mom's son, and then the other brothers were his sons.
Correct. Yeah. And, I don't know how much blood factors into it all. I think, we all have different ways of grieving, and I think many of them are ready to move on. And, I try to respect that all I can. I don't want to tell anybody how to grieve.
Well, I'm so happy that I got to talk to you and meet you. And maybe, I'm sure when this is done, I always do shows in Phoenix. So I hope that you can come and we can meet in person. And I just wish you all the best of luck, and I'll continue to follow all of this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and I would absolutely love that. And seriously, thank you for having me on and being a part of the fight.